With each dawn, it is as if we are reborn into this world. Each new day brings with it the opportunity to be genuine, rather than mere reflections of our old beliefs and fixations. The habits and tendencies, both physical and mental, that we carry throughout our lives shape what we call identity, our individuality, the ego. This ego, which we often mistake for our true self, is in reality an illusion created by memory. It represents only the superficial part of our duality, a shadow that conceals the vast, unknown essence of who we truly are. This deep core, which travels from one body to another, from one dream to the next, through the flow of existence, rarely awakens to the true reality. Life, however, continually pushes us toward change. We identify with these changes, believing that each reflects who we truly are. It is only by quieting our mind and stepping away from these patterns, even briefly in meditation, that we begin to realize they do not define our authentic self. On the contrary, they reveal themselves as parts of the false self, masking the true self hidden beneath layers of old habits. Unfortunately, the power of these patterns is so strong that we soon allow them to regain control over us. Thus, we fall once again into the trap of the great illusion of the ego, believing that these masks are who we truly are. We are captives of our ego because we are bound by the chains of the past. Those who constantly turn to old memories become entangled in them, becoming prisoners of an identity shaped by past experiences. The weight of remorse for mistakes made and self-pity for being a victim of others' actions only amplify the barriers we must overcome on our journey of self-discovery. To free ourselves from these bonds, it is necessary to detach from the expectations created by past memories and anxieties about the future. By doing so, we take a crucial step toward the liberation of the ego. Any path that leads us beyond the tyranny of the ego, whether through a new perspective, a transformative experience, or even an elevated state of mind, deserves to be explored. However, this freedom becomes more tangible as we detach from the narrative we have constructed over time. Now is the time to break free from the past. Sever the ties with the ego that keep you captive. As Paul Brunton reminds us, and Shams of Tabriz echoes, each breath is an opportunity for spiritual rebirth. But to be reborn, one must die before dying. The ego is a fragile construct built from patterns of thoughts and habits. It is a mosaic of experiences that create the illusion of permanence. However, in the end, it is nothing more than a sequence of thoughts, albeit intense and persistent. The personal ego is merely the sum of all the thoughts that populate your mind throughout the day. If you were to write them down one by one, the totality of those notes would be your personality. However, without these thoughts, the ego could not exist. Silencing the thoughts is therefore silencing the ego. And by doing so, we find the path to true inner freedom. The ultimate destination of human evolution leads us beyond the personality we know today, towards a higher expression of our essence, the soul. To reach this elevation, the lower characteristics that bind us to the ego must be gradually abandoned. This process of detachment is like a symbolic death to the worldly self, allowing for the rebirth into the true self, purer and more authentic. This is the only real death we face, the death of the ego. Each person has the opportunity to revive, not just once, but as many times as necessary, until they find and settle into their divine nature. This call to transformation involves dying to the ego, letting go of desires, passions, hatreds, and ambitions, to learn to live in total independence from external circumstances and complete dependence on the true inner self. This is the same invitation Jesus made when he said, "Whoever loses their life will find it." The pains and difficulties of earthly life are merely transitional stages toward an eternal purpose, a path to expand the consciousness of the personal self and reach the true spiritual self. We are here on earth with a single objective, to discover our true spiritual being. Until this is achieved, we will return repeatedly, enduring the suffering necessary for this discovery. The time will come when the old self must turn its back on the past, allowing the new being to be born. In this process, the memories of the ego become obstacles. and detaching from them is essential for the full realization of our spiritual purpose. The mind, throughout its evolutionary journey, must gradually detach from ancient illusions and prejudices nurtured by time. This often imperceptible progress culminates at a decisive moment in a flash of supreme illumination where truth finally prevails. One day, the enigmatic event described by Jesus as being born again will occur, bringing a serene transition from the false self to the true self. This moment of revelation arises within the disciple with an irresistible force that transcends the resistance of the intellect, the ego, and the instinctive side. When this profound self-understanding is achieved, the individual experiences the sublime touch of the intangible, feeling truly alive for the first time. In this sacred moment, they are freed from the complexities of the intellect and the traps of the ego. In the presence of the true self, benevolence, peace, and wisdom become eternal and tangible realities, surpassing the limitations of worldly life and revealing a sacred greatness. The destiny of the ego is to be elevated and eventually transcended by the true self. However, the ego, by its nature, does not willingly extinguish itself. An external force must intervene to accomplish this elevation. This force is grace, an essential and transformative power. The presence of grace is vital because many, despite their efforts, cannot break free from the chains of thought. Grace then intervenes, liberating them from mental bonds and guiding them to awakening. To transcend the ego, it is crucial to understand three fundamental truths. First, the ego is nothing more than a construct of memories and desires, a fictitious entity composed of thoughts. Second, the incessant activity of the mind can be silenced through stillness. And third, grace, a constant emanation of the supreme power, is always present and available. When the mind quiets deeply and observes the ego's instinct for self-preservation, it opens the way for grace to lovingly absorb it. Total surrender is the indispensable prerequisite. Submit like an empty cup, ready to be filled by grace and intuitively guided by the true self. Do not settle for a partial life that oscillates between ego and spirit. If the path seems too long or steep, advance as far as you can, even if it is just part of the way. The spiritual seeker has the task of removing obstacles, cultivating concentration, and opening to grace. This ever-present grace allows past mistakes to be left behind, promoting healing in the present. In the joy provided by grace, old pains disappear, giving way to the serenity and power of the eternal now. This is true freedom, living fully in the present, in peace, love, wisdom, and strength. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications. By subscribing, you're not only supporting our channel, but also helping YouTube recognize the value of this content, so it can reach even more people. Let's grow this community together and make a bigger impact.